Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, 1989 Mole Crawler. Today I'm going to go over a video where I explain how I basically installed my spare tire backwards in reverse, which sounds kind of weird, but I'll explain why. I'm on a few different Facebook groups and a lot of people with Wranglers, especially YJs, they just lack storage. I went over my panels, that you can, magnetize panels in the previous video. I have false floors. I'm going to redo those and I'll do a video when I do those. Basically you have tons of tools shoved where the passenger would put their feet, and on hinges I have flat plates over it, so it's kind of like a false floor. Boxes that sit on the passenger side and the driver's side, right next to the seats, that are covered up with my fake grass. I got all sorts of stuff. I'm just, I don't know, I like storage stuff. So this basically just got me thinking a way to hide things I want to keep in my Jeep but I don't use every day. So here I have a bag that holds my side windows. I have a tree saver and I have a big ratchet. I have a smaller ratchet strap inside, but the big one I keep just in case, but I don't use it every day. So that's kind of what this purpose is for. This isn't really like something that I've never seen it done on a Jeep, but Grenadiers do it. Grenadiers? I don't know what those things are called. The like knockoff Defender 90s. That's kind of where I got the idea. The other reason to do it is basically, in theory, we'll see how it works after a few hundred or thousand miles. But in theory, it should be easier on the hinges for the tailgate. So as you can see here, the blue is the hinge, and you got the arrows, and that's where all the weight would be for the face of your rim on a normal setup. And then all that's going down. So you have a bunch of torque, kind of like having your arm out extended, trying to hold on to something, right? You feel the stress on your arm when your arm's extended, holding on to something. To get up closer to your body, it puts all that weight more in line with the hinges, right? So the weight of the rim is in the inside. So in theory, that this is a stronger design, because I know a lot of guys with YJs also have issues with spare tires, and I didn't want to do a swing out. Swing outs have their own issues, unless you're spending like $500-600, and even those sometimes I see complaints on them. So let's get into what you got to get. So I bought, these are not cheap. It's like $100 for two of them. I think they're more akin to the TJ style, if I remember correctly. And TJs can hold oversized tires up to a certain extent. I have 33s, and this isn't even a full size 33. My 33s were pull offs from a guy with a the hell are those big things, Gladiators, that he had and he sold and whatever. So that's what I have. But the spare is the same size, and I'll show you the same size, just thinner, not as wide. All right, then I got a MotoFab lifts, spare tire spacer, right? And then that's a little cheapy bag. I put everything in. And then Moroso wheel studs, 1/2 inch by 3 inch. You probably don't need the wheel studs to be this hardcore Moroso. I mean, I don't even know if you could probably weld something up if you don't want to spend $40 on. I think 5 came with them, maybe 4 in the packet. But nonetheless, if you don't want to spend $40, you could probably figure something out and weld it. This is just the route I went, but you definitely need 3 inches, because you won't have lug nuts countersinking into the rim, because we're using the backside, which is flat. So you definitely need the length. In fact, if you're going to weld something, dude, just go 3 1/4, and do it that route. And then I bought a chopping board, just a cheapie. It's like really thin. You'll see it. Oh, 1/2 inch, 14 by 11 and 1/2 inch thick. And a tire cover. A hard tire cover would probably be kind of cool. And then my buddy luckily works at a machine shop, and he works with some guys that sometimes mess stuff up, as anyone that makes stuff does. And so I got, this was a big sheet of it's a big sheet of aluminum. It weighed a ton. It was 1 inch by 24 by 24, I think. So what you need is, that's my original tire carrier, spare tire carrier, and the bolts are like 9 3/4, so you need something more than 11 wide. right? And then you'll need probably about 15 inches because we got to move it up. Because otherwise, what I was running against and running this is if I put my bigger tire on there, it would have actually hit my bumper. So that's another reason why I decided to make this. So, and using that, I guess I could have done it. This is it, just how it's supposed to be. But it was still too far off, adding more leverage to my tailgate. So I didn't really like it. Anyways, and I wanted to do the reverse anyhow. So there you go. You can see my spare is almost the same size as my my regulars. Pretty close, just a little bit thinner. Spare is a 255/75 R17, and my regulars are a 285/70 R17. So not that far off. With my True Track, I probably won't be able to use those in the spare. I probably won't be able to use the spare in the rear. Probably have to put it up front, but I don't know. That's if I ever need to use it. Hopefully I don't have onboard air, have nail plugs, all that jazz. So hopefully I just never have to use it. All right, so here I get the MotoFab mount, whatever, and I'm basically making spacers out of the cutting board. The point of the spacers is to be able to go in or out with it, with the tire as I need. Also, I wanted to protect the faceplate. So I didn't want, not the faceplate, the face of the wheel. I didn't want the face of the wheel up against the metal and the lug nuts. So that's what that's for. And then also on the backside, so when I put on my bolts, they wouldn't dig into the aluminum on the flat side of the rim. The other good thing is I haven't tested this up against my my regular wheels, my regular tires. There's probably a good chance that the offset is a little bit, especially a little bit off, especially with the thicker wheels. So maybe I could use these as maybe make a couple extras and use them as spacers to space it off so that they still sit correctly with the bumpers up against that are up against the tailgate, because you want to keep the bumpers. You don't want to get rid of those. That basically, when you cinch it all down, they crush a little bit and it makes it all one solid piece, your tailgate and everything. All right. So here I am with the spacers and making sure I got the right bolt pattern, because that thing comes with different bolt patterns. And I measure it up. So that's where I had to find out what size plate I needed, where I needed it to go up, down, whatever. And I end up with 14 by 11 inches. And here, me and my buddy are, we're at his machine shop cutting it. It took forever. I mean, the bandsaw worked nice. I was originally going to do it with with a Sawzall, which I would have gotten it done, but it would have sucked. All right, and then we pre-drilled the holes with a Bridgeport. We only did the 5s, so there's 2 on the bottom, 3 up on top that hold the plate onto the tailgate, right? So we did those there, and the other ones for the actual MotoFab offset thingy, we wanted to make sure that we had everything correct because it was a lot of juggling. What we did is we attached the MotoFab thing. Well, you saw the measurements, but we also attached the MotoFab thing to a wheel, put, I think, 2 2x4s or something like that, or a 4x4 on the bumper, and then rested it up on the bumper. That's another way we got the measurement as how much higher off the tailgate we needed to be for this chunk of metal. It was a lot of juggling. So we knew we had this correct. So we pre-drilled these holes, and then we were gonna. I was gonna double check it when I got home up against the MotoFab, and we did have it correct. That's what it came out at. So we used the Bridgeport to drill those holes. And side note, I want a freaking Bridgeport now. That thing is so freaking cool. Holy cow. It's still pretty chunky, 16.8 pounds, but you know, what can you do? So here's where I'm putting the lug nuts into the MotoFab whatever offset. Use grease, that's why I'm all dirty. And use the nut. Do not use a lug nut. You got to use a hardened nut. The lug nut is just going to collapse, cross-thread, all that jazz. And then in and out, and then in and out. You want to work it in real easily because there's a lot of pressure there. I used a big impact. So basically screw in. You'll feel it come in, tighten up, and then pull it in a little bit, and then back it back out, and then back, screw back in, all that jazz. Easy does it with that. But it eventually goes in. As it goes in, it starts to get easier. All right, then I got out, after I was sure of my holes, I got a countersink bit. All right, so I countersunk them. You want to use countersink on, at least I did, to attach the plate to the Jeep, and also bigger countersink. We used 1/2 inch for the 3 bolts that attach from the backside. Basically, the heads of them are touching the tailgate, and then outward to the MotoFab offset wheel tire carrier. The reason you want to use offset is not only because, well, it's a cleaner look, but also this way you can get the MotoFab plate on there without any, interference. And the other reason is that countersink is just better when it comes to stuff like this, because it's kind of like a built-in washer. Plus, also, it cinches everything down, so to speak. So even if your holes are a little off, when you go to put them in, the triangular part and the angle part of them press everything in. Even if they're a little off, they'll tighten up against each other, if that makes any sense. So they're just a better situation all around to use, compared to larger gates. Plus, remember, I wanted this as close as possible to the tailgate. So that's the way to go. I couldn't countersink the big guys as much as I really wanted to, which is just fine, because I'll show you later, but I used some ABS plastic to keep the aluminum off the tailgate. Just 1/8 inch ABS, not a big deal. Actually, it might have been Kydex. I don't remember. Whatever, plastic. All right, so here I am cinching it all on. So here you can see the plastic from the cutting board. That's what's protecting the face of the rim. All right, and my tailgate is dragging a little bit. It has been for a while, but I just want to dry fit it. And you can see how it looks. I need the bumpers to come out a little bit. Forgot, you also need a 3D printer. If you don't have one, you can make something out of 2x4 wood. If you want to laminate some plywood, that would also work. But I use a 3D printer, these 3D shapers. So I took out the bumper, put a quarter on it, imported the picture in the 3D shaper, and then basically did a circle the exact same size as the quarter, which brought the image to the same size, and then basically just traced the image. Really simple 2D kind of 3D printing, or how to make stuff in 2D out of, in that type of software. And then just once you have the image, the 2D image, just extrude it up. I needed, the bottom ones were 1/2 inch, and the top ones were 1.25 inches. So, but don't go by that. Your tire may be different. Depends if you have, mine's pretty filled up with air. If you have less air, what type of offset your rim is, all that kind of jazz. All right, now I just reprint it up, and yeah, 3D printing is amazing. Unless you don't use it every single day, then I swear to God, every single time you go to print something, something's off. The filament's too old, this, that, it's always something. All right, so I got that ABS plastic, a 2-inch hole saw. There you go. These are basically for the 5 bolts that go through the aluminum plate up against the, so it has space up against the painted tailgate. So I didn't have raw aluminum. See, like that. And then also, because of those countersunks, the big guys I couldn't get fully in, it gives them a little space so they're not rubbing up against there. In fact, if you look at the top, you can kind of see there's a little bit of a gap compared to the bottom. So this evens all that up. All right, and those bumpers are 1/4 inch by 20. And I'm putting the bumpers on. I had to cut some, but I ended up actually, this is very hard. Once the wheel's on there, it's very hard to measure it. The top ones need to go out longer. Anyhow, like I said, I did 1.25 inches up on top. All right, then I put it on. So here's where I got, I originally had the hinges, but I got new mounting hardware. Just because the screws I had were from originally and they were a little chewed up and, you know, whatever. I just didn't like them that much. And inside, you can cinch them up. I used a blue Loctite. I think I used blue. Damn, I don't remember. I might have used red. Anyways, use Loctite. So the body side of the hinge, that's not adjustable. You can even see it on the back side. It just bolts right through. But there is a captured plate on the top and bottom of the actual tailgate, and that's what gives you some leeway. So you can kind of see on the left there, above the M14 sticker, I put in one of those little pucks I made out of the 1/8 inch ABS plastic, and I used that to square it up, kind of shim it up while I cranked it down and tightened it up. And it's been holding. I've driven it now for, I don't know, I've had about 50 miles on it. Speed bumps, all that jazz, urban stuff, red brick roads, and all the annoying stuff, at least for urban. And it's kept at 0. It's still square in the hole. You can tell I'm a door guy, huh? Square in the hole. Such door guy stuff. Test fit it. Closes nice. On the 3D printed bumpers I made after I made some new ones, some new bigger spacers. Bam, there we go. They're a little big. I wish it was closer up to the tailgate, but what can you do? I think if you had a 3/4 inch piece of aluminum, maybe even 1/2 inch. I mean, yeah, maybe even half. I mean, like I said, this is an inch. So even if you had 1/2 inch, I bet it would hold the tire. I bet it would. But do what you want. Originally I was going to make this out of aluminum, like aluminum piping, with a bracket or something. I mean, sorry, steel, like steel square tubing, and weld it up. But then my buddy had that big plate, and that's what I did, and it came out just fine. This isn't like something super duper cool or something. I might take off the plate and have it anodized with some other parts maybe down the road. I don't know. You don't really see it, as you can see. That bumper, I mean, that spare tire looks massive up against my other ones, but what can you do? So there you go. There's how you can get a little bit more storage area for things that you might not use every day, but you want on your Jeep. All right. Hope you guys enjoy it. Have a good one.